The Cowboys were able to trade down and still focus on fixing their poorly ranked defense in the draft. 8 of their 11 draft picks were on the defensive side of the ball, including their first 6 picks. Pro Football Focus gave the Cowboys a B grade for their draft. We're now joined by Fox Sports NFL analyst Bucky Brooks. Bucky, you've been all over this draft, so I want your opinion. What letter grade would you give the Cowboys for their draft?
Yeah, I think a B is a solid grade for the Cowboys because I think it was a good draft for them. I think it was a little unconventional in terms of how they got about filling their needs, but they came away with some really good players that can make an impact. And I think you have to understand the overall theme of this defense when it comes to Dan Quinn. If you want a defense that plays hard, you have to get players that play hard. And so the one thing that I can say about each of the players that the Cowboys brought on the defense side of the ball, high energy, high motor players. That lackluster effort that we saw from the Cowboys last year, particularly against the Cleveland Browns and other games, Dan Quinn is not going to put up with that. And so he's trying to recreate a culture where you have guys that go hard from snap to whistle. Each of these players have that, and that's why this defense will be much improved because the scheme is about effort, energy, and toughness. It's not about out-scheming or out-tricking people.
When I look at it, the first 6 picks were on the defensive side of football, 8 of 11. So that tells me that Jerry Jones, even though he fired Mike Nolan, realized that the talent that we have was not getting it done. That's the only reason you have that many picks on that side of the ball. If it was the same way offensively, if you pick 8 guys on the offensive side of football, it's telling me my offense currently as constructed wasn't good enough. I need to get better players on this side of the football. Is that how you read it, Bucky?
Absolutely. It was an emphasis. It was a focal point. They wanted to get better. And I think it's not a coincidence in terms of the positions that they took care of. I know we all like to think about the corners and those things. They didn't address that. But championship defenses are strong right down the middle. So when you go and you look at the players that they took players right down the middle. Defensive tackle from UCLA, 2 linebackers, Micah Parsons and Jabril Cox from Penn State and LSU, respectively. They wanted to make sure that they addressed that part of it because this was a defense that wasn't fast and wasn't very athletic. And when you look at the top defenses, they are explosive athletes. And the more speed that you put on the field, the more turnovers that will result. That is why they put an emphasis on making sure they have more athletes that they acquired in the draft.
Okay, now it's my turn, and I am the one Cowboy fan on this panel right now, and I give my team a C- for its effort in the draft run by Dan Quinn, who suddenly went from being fired in Atlanta at 0-5 to running the Dallas Cowboys. If you can explain that to me, you're way ahead of me.
Why are you so convinced he's running it?
He made all these picks. He wanted guys with long arms. They all got long arms. I give you that much, but Bucky, back to you. Micah Parsons, I know the talent. I've seen the talent. You had him top rated on defense on your board. I believe Shannon would call him the best defensive player on the board. Mm-hmm. Character issues and ego issues. I watched his whole Welcome to Dallas press conference. Huge ego. But if it translates to playing with edge, I'll give you that. But I wanted Patrick Surtain II because he's everything I wanted in a cornerback, and he's a cornerstone where I can trust him. He's a great young man with high character, and I'm not convinced about Micah Parsons' character on and off the field, which brings me to the second-round pick. They're sitting, I think, on Trevon Merrick from TCU, who I watched because I'm a Big 12 fan against Oklahoma several times. And it was everything I wanted in a safety. And the Raiders go up and snake him 1 pick ahead of us in the second round, which leaves us Kelvin Joseph, who has made already in his young career 6 rap albums under the name Boss Man Fat. And I just don't know if when I look at his tape and I look at all the things he's done, he was known for unnecessary personal fouls. He got suspended for the bowl game at LSU, obviously sat out a year, transferred to Kentucky. So we got character and ego issues with our second round pick. Well, how can I trust that? And by the way, Asante Samuel goes 3 picks later. And once again, there it is, a bloodline cornerback to a guy who could really play at a high level in the National Football League. And give me Patrick Surtain or give me Asante Samuel Jr., and I will beat you. And I'm not sure about what Dallas, Texas is going to do to Micah Parsons or Kelvin Joseph. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, look, I think it's a reasonable concern because when you go to a big city like Dallas, where the spotlight and the stage is big, yes, you have to worry about the maturity of your players. And so that's something that every draft pick has to deal with, and hopefully they have something set up for the Cowboys. But I will say this about the on-field character of both of the players that you mentioned. Micah Parsons is everything that Dan Quinn has always wanted in a playmaker. Very instinctive, supernatural, and explosive. There's nothing on the field that Micah Parsons cannot do. And for a Dallas defense that had been playing with Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch, they needed another playmaker. They needed someone that could get it done. He is going to have a chance to play beside Jabril Cox, who's another athletic linebacker who can run and chase. And so from sideline to sideline, the Cowboys are vastly improved just by Parsons and Cox coming over. In terms of Joseph, look, Joseph has some undisciplined things that show up when it comes to the tape, but he's a five-star athlete, big-time playmaker, a competitor. Here's what I'll say about the Cowboys defense as you see Odell Beckham Jr. running away from Jalen Smith. They needed more athleticism and they needed an edge. And to create and change the culture there, they had to bring more edgy guys because, as I think Shannon could allude to or attest to when he was in Baltimore with that defense, you have to have some guys that go to the line and maybe a little bit above the line if you're going to create one of these high-end defenses. Dan Quinn understands that because that defense that he had in Seattle was salty. He has to bring some salty dogs into Dallas. That's what he did. Now it's on him to make sure that the culture is right on that defense side of the ball and everyone is accountable, committed, and dependable when it comes to playing the game.
Okay, but Bucky, they end up taking two corners, one late third round and Deshaun Wright out of Oregon State, and then they take the other corner from South Carolina. Obviously, they were homed in on J.C. Horn early, but that Israel Mukwama, and they're both like treetop corner. They're both 6'4"-ish kind of corners, and Dan Quinn thinks he's going to recreate Richard Sherman and Brandon Brown, and I hope they are, but I don't see it because nobody had either rated that high.
Yeah, so here's what you have to think. The common thing, because I've heard you allude to the arm length and why they want long guys on their defense. When you play zone, you want longer guys to make it harder for the quarterback to fit it into tighter windows. When you play zone, remember, all eyes are on the quarterback. They're basically stealing bases off the pitcher. And so that length and the speed makes it harder when it comes to trying to fit the ball into tight windows. That's why you're seeing them place an emphasis on these long athletic corners, these long players in the middle of the field. They're trying to tighten the spaces that quarterbacks have to fit the ball into. When it works and these guys are dialed in to really stealing and cluing the quarterback, it makes it very, very difficult for the quarterback to fit the ball in these tight ends.
Okay, I'll buy that. But can they play cornerback? Can they cover? I don't know. I'm not sure. The mock drafts would say no, they can't because they're ranked way like Deshaun Wright was ranked off the board, 272nd overall, and he went 99th. That's ridiculous to me.
I mean, look, this year was going to be more volatile than any other year because we didn't have combine, pro days, private workouts. So we didn't have all of the scouts coming together, coming up with a consensus on who were the top players. So everyone was operating basically in a silo. And so just because the mock drafts in the outside world may say that a player is in the 200s, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's a bad player. Because remember, the draft board is really created based on how you view the players and how they're going to play within your scheme. There's a very specific set of tools and traits that the Cowboys are looking for to fill in the gaps in this Dan Quinn defense. We won't know until these guys get on the field how well they fit. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, even though everyone on the outside would say, hey, man, it seemed like they reached for these guys early. Let's wait and see, because the one thing I will say, 6'4" on the Allen, if he can put his hands on any wide receiver, it really makes for a hard down for the wide receiver. Let's just see if he has the technical savvy to go with the length and the athleticism to become a top corner in this scheme.
Skip, you like the guy at Tampa, the big, long, lanky cornerback that they have. I forget his name, that you love so much, that picked Aaron Rodgers up and took it to the. He's 6'4". So that, and if you look at Tampa's defense,
6'4"? I don't know if he's 6'4".
I think he's 6'4". You look at Tampa,
the Auburn kid.
Yeah. You look at Tampa,
run,
and you look at the Ravens. Turnovers happens, when impacts are quicker than what the receiver or the running back expect.
Yep.
So now the ball's on the turf. They're able to get there and rip the ball out. So Dallas Cowboys, they want to create turnovers because what did they do? With the exception of a few games, they weren't getting any turnovers. So now we're slow. We don't create turnovers. Team can run the ball, keep our offense off the field, and now what? They believe Micah Parsons in this defense will be Bobby Wagner.
Okay.
They believe he'll be Deion Jones when Dan Quinn was at Atlanta. That's what they need, a sudden guy that can create havoc. I believe this guy has that kind of ability, Skip.
Okay, I got it. But to me, Jabril Cox in the 4th round was their best value pick because I knew him from North Dakota State because he was the Missouri Valley Defensive Player of the Year. And then he says, I got 1 year left. I'm going to transfer to LSU. And he walks on the football field and takes over the program and became the leader of a defense. And when I turned on LSU, I'm just watching television. He leaped off my screen because he is a run and hit outside linebacker who can cover anybody, a back, a tight end. So that's like a value pick because I trust his character along with the edge that he plays with.
Man, you know Dallas has always picked shady apples. And now all of a sudden, go back to the 60s. When have they had choir boys, Skip Bayless? 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. When have they had them? And now all of a sudden, you're concerned about character.
But all those outlaws could play.
Exactly.
Couldn't they?